In this video, I'm going to show you how obesity and hyperglycemia degenerate your skeletal muscles, which is really problematic as we get older because we tend to lose muscle mass as we age anyway. And even if you do work out your whole life, it's really difficult to maintain your muscle mass at 70 and 80 as you did when you were 60, 50, or younger. So it's really important to avoid obesity and hyperglycemia. So this is a quick question. So which muscle is normal? Now this is an electron micrograph, and what that means is that it's a picture taken from an electron microscope. So it's a very, very close-up shot. And so I'm going to show you what is normal. This is a nucleus. It is normal. So nucleus, normal. This nucleus, smaller, but it's not as close a shot, also normal. These lines are called Z lines. If anyone has ever taken a histology course and a physiology course, you'd have learned about Z lines as part of the small microscopic structure of skeletal muscles. So these Z lines, they're all normal. Over here, they're just wider because it's a closer shot, also normal. So the question that you have, where you see the double-headed arrow near the nucleus, are all of these structures normal? And then you can see down by the Z lines, by where the muscle fibers themselves are, and you got a lot of them here, is that normal? Or should there be less? Like you see over here, they're present in both. Is it less that is normal, as you can see on the left side? That's a question mark. Or is the right side normal? And so, obviously, to know the answer, you need to know what these things are. Now, I can tell you that I have shown this slide to chiropractors, medical doctors, physical therapists, osteopaths, and PhDs, and almost everybody gets it wrong. Not everybody, but I would say in the high 90s get it wrong. And the answer is this side is normal. The right side is normal. And here is the article where I got this from. It was published back in 2005. You can see deficiency of mitochondria in obesity and type 2 diabetes. Notice the title of this video, how obesity and hyperglycemia degenerate skeletal muscles. So what you can see is that there is this loss that occurs. So as we go from normal and healthy and lean, it's not obese and lean, and normal glucose towards diabetes, you can see it's a gradual process, but this is the outcome. And the obvious question, of course, is, well, if I reverse my obesity and diabetes, can I go in this direction? Of course, the answer is yes, you can. You certainly can. So let me show you how we start to lose mitochondria. When we start to lose it, you can lose your mitochondria or start to lose them in like 4 weeks. And this was a great paper that showed it. So these are healthy people and they're normal weight people. Healthy individuals, normal weight. So what they did for just 4 weeks, because they stopped it because they were losing mitochondria, for just 4 weeks of supplementation with what? With basically a glucose drink that had 140 grams plus or minus 15 per day, which is 500 to 600 calories of pure sugar per day on top of their regular diet for 4 weeks. What happened? Well, it shifted the metabolism of these carbohydrates by increasing a pathway called glycolysis. This is the pathway that produces lactic acid. And so overeating sugar at 500 calories per day for 4 weeks creates more lactic acid, and it stimulates fat-producing genes, and it reduces mitochondria. And we just showed you in the previous image the loss of mitochondria that occurs. And so in a book that I wrote last year, you can see it was published. I created this image in 2019. This was published in the beginning of 2021. This is a normal, healthy skeletal muscle with lots of mitochondria. And what do mitochondria do? Mitochondria create energy. They create energy. So cell energy, no matter what cell it is, obviously, it doesn't make any difference. Mitochondria in all cells create energy. And here we're seeing how we lose mitochondria when one is obese and hyperglycemic. So it should not be surprising that obese and hyperglycemic people have less energy compared to lean, healthy people. Certainly it's more difficult to move the mass around, as well as the mass that contains so little mitochondria in comparison to being lean and healthy. There's something else that happens as we go from lean to obese and hyperglycemic. Now, this next word is not going to make sense to you unless you've read my books previously. So this was published back in 2006. You can see the term adiponectin. So adiponectin is produced in fat cells. So fat cells produce adiponectin, and the adiponectin that is released by fat cells goes to skeletal muscle to stimulate mitochondrial production. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Healthy, lean fat cells stimulate skeletal muscle to create more mitochondria to drive energy. Not more, but it serves to regenerate and promote and what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it off the top of my head right now. I'm not going to stop the video to figure out, to remind myself of the proper word. Maybe I'll think of it. But here's how it would look. So this is what lean fat mass looks like. Fat mass is called adipose tissue. Now your fat mass contains fat cells and immune cells. Almost nobody knows that. That's how it goes. I learned this about maybe in 2009, 9 or 10. So you have anti-inflammatory macrophages called M2 macrophages, and then anti-inflammatory T cells called T regulatory cells and T helper 2 cells. So it is the lean fat cell that produces adiponectin. There you go. Adiponectin is produced in proper amounts, and it goes to skeletal muscle to stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis. That's the word that is used. Look what happens over here. Here one is obese. Very low, very low. There's a little small, little lowercase a. Very low production of adiponectin. Lot of inflammatory cytokines, immune cells that show up that only otherwise show up during viral infections or cancer show up when you have a mass of as the fat mass grows. So there's a lack of adiponectin when one is obese, and this prevents proper mitochondrial biogenesis, and you can see what happens. We lose muscle mitochondria. So there's more that takes place, unfortunately. So as we overeat sugar and flour and become hyperglycemic and obese, something else happens. So normal, healthy, deflamed skeletal muscle naturally contain triglycerides that are found within the skeletal muscle that serves as energy for the healthy muscle. Look what happens. First of all, you should recognize that there's a lot more triglycerides found in, and I just use the word rotting here because you can see, stop your joints, muscles, and bones from rotting. Rotting basically means, I use that word because it's common use language to reflect degeneration. So there's a degeneration process that is taking place in skeletal muscles. So your pro-inflammatory, hyperglycemic, obese skeletal muscles contain an abundance of triglycerides compared to lean, healthy muscles, deflamed muscles. Plus we have additional fats that are present. And so when you have these fats present, which they're never present, or if they are, it's very small amounts, this is called lipotoxicity. So obese people with high blood glucose levels, metabolic syndrome, or type 2 diabetes, they live in a state of lipotoxicity of skeletal muscle. There's also an immune cell profile change that occurs. So let's look at that. So this is anti-inflammatory macrophages in your lean, healthy, deflamed skeletal muscles, and in your rotting, obese, hyperglycemic skeletal muscles, there's an infiltration of pro-inflammatory macrophages, immune cells. So these typically show up to clean up debris after injury or infection, and here they are accumulating in obese and high blood glucose skeletal muscles. So muscles also go through an atrophy change. So this is a picture of a muscle fiber, normal size, healthy, deflamed, and of course you can see how much smaller they are in your obese and hyperglycemic rotting muscles. Now something else takes place. Not only do we have smaller muscle fiber sizes, now of course we can have massive arms and legs, but this will all be fat, as you can see in obese individuals that you'll see walking around with shirts off or shorts or at the beach. Something else happens here that goes along with the change in muscle fiber size. So here we're looking at S stands for satellite cells. Now satellite cells are muscle stem cells. Whenever we exercise, now you should think about this, if you're going to exercise whatever muscle group you're going to work at, you're never going to load your biceps every day hard as you can do it because you got to heal. So after you exercise, you create a low-grade inflammatory state that activates stem cells to repair the damaged and then also regenerate skeletal muscles. So you repair, you rebuild your skeletal muscles as a consequence of your satellite cells. So healthy Dflame skeletal muscles have an abundance of satellite cells. They also have an abundance of mitochondria. Look what happens over in your rotting, obese muscles that are also exposed to high blood glucose levels. We will have less mitochondria, as I've already showed you, less satellite cells, as you can see here. And of course, when one is obese and hyperglycemic, they end up with elevated levels of endotoxin from the gut, and that gets into skeletal muscles and adds to the degenerating, rotting effect that occurs. I mean, it just never ends. So I put all these problems together into one big picture, and it shows you normal, deflamed, healthy on the left, normal muscle cells, normal fat stores and triglycerides, normal mitochondria, normal satellite cells, no endotoxin, deflaming macrophages. I didn't put in there, not enough room. I could have, I just didn't. On the other side, your rotting, obese, high blood glucose muscles, muscle atrophy, lipotoxic fatty acid, fatty infiltration, reduced mitochondria, reduced satellite cells, regenerative capacity, endotoxin, and pro-inflammatory macrophages. Big issue, big issue. So people will always ask me, ask anyone who does, what should I do? Very simple. I'll show you exactly what to do in one image. So here you go. So the Dflame diet is not a specific eat this, eat that. The Dflame diet can be vegan, omnivore, or carnivore because the Dflame means the outcome of your eating. You can be a pure vegan, an omnivore, which is what most people are, or a carnivore as long as you do it right. And the carnivore diet should be a high-fat diet, as I showed in a previous video that I put up, well, at the probably maybe the 28th of April. Today is May 1st, 2021, so just a couple days ago. So the first thing that we want to do, avoid excess calories. We should weigh what we weighed when we were in high school or college, depending upon when we reached our mature weight. Now, if you start to work out a lot after graduating from high school or college, you're obviously going to be bigger, and that should be your proper weight. So we want to weigh what we weighed when we were in high school or college. So basically, women achieve their proper adult weight between the age of 16 and 20. I mean, these are general numbers. And guys, more like, closer to 25 for a lot of guys. So it's really for guys like 20 to 25, depending upon how fast they mature. So that's what we should weigh. We should weigh what we weighed when we were 16 to 20 if you're a woman. We should weigh what we weighed when we were 20 to 25 if you're a man. So we need to avoid empty calories. These do nothing but cause problems when consumed in excess. And of course, excess salt is also a nightmare. And of course, we typically add excess salt to foods that are cooked with these substances here. So how much should you eat? You can eat a little, you shouldn't be a big lifestyle. So we never end up being obese. Now, dealing with obesity is a mental battle. On the cover of this book is my youngest brother. Here you can see he's 190. He's been 190 since 2007. Between 2002 and 2007, he went from 190 to 340 because he has a severe case of cervical dystonia, also called spasmodic torticollis. So he couldn't exercise. He was brutally depressed. He just forced himself. I mean, talking about the mental vigilance. He forced himself to eat less calories. And so in 1 year, he went from 340 in 2007 down to 190, and he has been 190 since 2007, and it is now 2021. Now, that's pretty amazing. So the weight loss secrets are the physiological, mental, and primordial battles that you must wage to keep yourself normal. And he does it very easily without the ability to exercise vigorously. So we should also maximize our nutrient to calorie ratio. So if you eat 200 calories of whole grains versus 200 calories of vegetables, you will get far more nutrients in vegetables. That's what that means. And of course, you have your various options. So no matter which option you want, and in all my books, I don't say you should eat this way or that way. You have to do pure paleo, which means you shouldn't eat any grains or legumes. And I'm a fan of the paleo diet. Where we differ slightly is that if you want to eat whole grains and legumes, no problem. Just do it to make sure that your markers are normal. Show all the markers in a couple of seconds. So no matter what condition one has to deal with, we want to normalize our body weight and eat anti-inflammatory calories. And if we don't do that, a host of different diseases manifest. I describe it in this book in general, and of course this book specifically. If you overeat sugar, flour, refined oils, much more likely to get breast cancer and all other cancers. If you eat an excess of sugar, flour, refined oils, you're going to end up with musculoskeletal degeneration and rotting. If you live on those calories, you're going to put yourself at much greater risk of dying and being a super spreader of all viruses, including the novel coronavirus that causes COVID-19. So what supplements people want to ask? Well, these are basic supplements. I don't have a multivitamin there because that's not a biggie. I mean, that's fine. I could have put multi there. I just didn't. For what reason? Not really sure. So my big three are magnesium, vitamin D, and fish oil because they're inexpensive and they have a fairly significant anti-inflammatory blast. Now, the people who shouldn't be taking these would be people taking multiple medications, so you would have to check. But otherwise, these are nothing special or complicated. If you just throw a multivitamin in there, people will say, well, this is not like some revolutionary idea. Of course it's not. None of this is. It's just that people don't do it adequately. So how do you control yourself? So the human mind loves goals. The human mind absolutely loves goals. And the human body loves it and the mind loves it when we set a goal and stick with it. So what should the goal be for diet? So it's not for me eating peppers or tomatoes or carrots. It's normalizing your markers. So all four of these books have these tables of markers. So this is the metabolic syndrome marker table. We want to get our values into the normal range. Now I want you to look at this. Fasting glucose should be 100 or less to be considered normal. But what should the goal be? Well, the goal should be to be at below 90 at least. And if you go into a ketogenic diet, which I describe in this book and the others as well, you would be down between 65 and 80, which is fantastic. And some people can get to that without being in a ketogenic state. So other markers. I'm not going to go through all these because it's not a marker video, but you can see all these different markers can be tracked. So fasting triglycerides, I'll show you this one. Fasting triglycerides, if you are 150 or higher, you're considered to have metabolic syndrome. What should you be for fasting triglycerides? Below 90 is normal. That's where you want to be. So here are markers for waist circumference, waist-to ratio, body mass, C-reactive protein, and vitamin D. So this is the purpose of diet, is to keep all of these markers normal. That's the purpose of diet, not to follow the Atkins diet. That's not the purpose of the diet, to just eat fat. The purpose of the diet is to eat fat, a high-fat diet, and make sure your markers are normal. If you love the paleo diet, which I do, the purpose of the paleo diet is to eat the proper amount of calories in the paleo world to get all these markers to be normal. So it's very, very simple, very, very straightforward, and that is why I call it the Dflame diet, because the outcome of diet is supposed to be to create a normal anti-inflammatory state that then gives you a much better chance of not ending up with these conditions down here and all the other ones that I list in this book as well. So to pick up a copy of any of these books, you can go right to Amazon. This is my author page. And it always shows up Kindle for some reason as opposed to paperback. This one shows up as paperback, but they can all be bought as Kindles or paperback, except for this one. This is only for paperback. So individual copies can be purchased here if you like them, if you're interested. And if you want to get volume copies for your practice, your office, or your business, volume discounts are available here. And of course, you're watching YouTube right now. If you've gotten this far, so you can like and subscribe and ring the bell and all that stuff people talk about. And you can follow me at Dflame Nutrition on Facebook and at Dflame Doc. I think it is Dflame. Well, you'll click through and you'll see what it is there, and you can follow me on Twitter.